All right, audio bros, let's talk a little bit about a speaker that I find rather interesting, but also not 100% sure about. I'm more sure about it now that I've spent time with listening to them in the OG, the Yarn Building Garage, the studio. I spent some time listening to them at my home garage, and I've spent more time in here. I actually went through the direct process, calibrated the speakers, and set it up for this room, and we'll do a quick little listen with you, because otherwise you're going to lose your crap, which I still think is the stupidest thing to do on the internet, is to play speakers through a microphone that you're listening to on your phone. But if I don't do it, some of you dum-dums will lose your mind. So, I'm the garage speaker guy, right? And so I'm generally approaching this, especially for the Obsessed Garage channel, I'm approaching speakers from what would it do for me in my garage? And when these were originally launched, or when I originally found out about them, there was the Zeo line, and then there was the original Focus line. So I was really excited about that, because the way these speakers work is you have a master speaker, and then you have a slave speaker, or a wireless connected speaker. So the master speaker receives the signal and then sends it over to the slave. Well, what I didn't know about the original Zeo lines, the original Focus line, is that it was really problematic to get a subwoofer connected to it. It was also basically a Bluetooth speaker. And so without you setting or creating or adding some other device like a Bluesound Node, they really weren't super functional. And so I got more excited about this. The difficulty is that these suckers are $5,500 a pair for a little baby speaker. The beauty of this now is they finally figured it out. So they finally have it integrated. They have it set up where we have everything we need in order to listen, in order to play all the modern stuff in the highest resolution possible. So generally speaking, personally, I'm going to listen to Tidal. I'm even more excited about Tidal because I guess they just flipped the switch, but they've sort of quietly transitioned from MQA, which is controversial in the hi-fi audio world because it's technically a compressed audio format, and they've gone to high-res FLAC or high-res FLAC files, and so now they call it MAX. So the Max master quality, or their masters, I don't even think they call it masters anymore, but their master series is a new codec, which is a true 24-192 lossless codec, which we can now listen to, and we can listen to that direct on here. So I've said this a million times when I've talked about wireless speakers and wireless streaming, and I don't know how much this matters in your garage, but it certainly matters to me in my garage. But when I connect my phone to my speakers or my audio streamer to my device, I just want my phone to be a remote control. I don't want the phone to be the player. And so when you're connected via Bluetooth, even if it's higher quality like aptX or Apple's version, you're still only going to get limited sub CD or sub CD quality, because you'd be using your phone as the codec or as the player, and then you're sending it wirelessly through Bluetooth or AirPlay or something like that. Whereas with the streaming, a device that's designed for streaming that has Tidal Connect or Spotify Connect, this becomes a remote control to tell the speaker what to do, but all the processing is done inside the DAC, the digital analog converter, inside of the device or inside of the box. And so that's what we have now with these. And we didn't have that with the Focus 10s. We didn't have that with the Zeo line. We do now have that, where no extra box, no extra node, no extra necessary device, and I can do my high-res listening direct to the speaker. I don't think it'll accept Apple's high-res version. I still don't know how the heck you get Apple's high-res lossless music to a device without doing some crazy connection. They still don't have that capability. If you're listening on Apple Music, it's going to play via AirPlay, which would be essentially CD quality. So check these puppies out. So on the back of this thing, they've essentially taken the tech Let's see if we can get you some light here. So they've taken the amplifier, shrunk the plate down, but they've taken the tech from their Core series, which you all know I love so much. Dynaudio Core is from the Pro line, so they have the same Pascal Class D amplification, the same processing, so they're pulling from the tech there. They're pulling from the digital amplification that they have, or the Class D amplification they have from the Core line. They're a little bit smaller amplifiers because these don't need quite as big of amplification as the larger Core series, but it's the same amplifier. So that's a huge upgrade over the previous generation. These will play louder than you can stand. And that's my big problem. I was really excited about the PSB Alpha IQs, but they like play like 50% of what I would want them to do. They just don't have the output. They don't have the level of amplification. And then same as the Core line and LYD lines from Dynaudio, you have a discrete amplification channel per driver. So the tweeter's getting 110 watts, the woofer's getting 280 watts. So I mean, that's a pretty significant amount of amplification for this little speaker that has a 5-inch woofer and a roughly 5-inch equivalent 5.25 woofer and a 1-inch tweeter. And then the master speaker has all the input-output stuff. The slave speaker, if you take a look, it really only has a single, just unplug this so you can see, it really only has a single coaxial connection if you wanted to connect. It has a service port and then has your pairing button, but your on-off switch. So this speaker, and the reason why I think this could be really beneficial for the garage is, what if you had a block wall and you couldn't run wires, but you did have the ability to plug it in, like you had an outlet. I don't have to run anything from left to right, no speaker wires or anything like that. All of the connectivity comes here. Now for me, I'm not going to connect squat. So, I mean, it has coaxial in, it has coaxial out. The reason that you may want to run digital coax from one speaker to the next, we're technically receiving 24.192, and it's going to send the signal to the other speaker 24.96 kilohertz. So we're losing a little bit of signal quality, technically speaking. I don't know that you'd be able to discern that, but technically speaking, the bridge between the two is a lower quality signal than what this is receiving or what this is outputting. But I find that the conversion or the technology it's using to send the signal from one speaker to the next is very, very good. I did have some issues with ZOs in the past. I haven't tested it on this, or if you had like a bunch of equipment in between, it could create some signal issues. But generally speaking, I found that the connectivity is pretty good. I think it's good up to like 20-something feet, 25 feet, something like that. But you could eliminate that by running a coaxial cable from this. That's why you have the coaxial in here. So if you wanted full master reference or reference audio, you technically would want to run digital coax cable from left to right. I think that defeats the purpose of the speaker. You do have network connection, so I could come, if I had Ethernet throughout my house, I could go connect Ethernet to have maybe a little quicker, more stable connection. I don't think you're not going to see a quality difference, because remember, the processing is happening in the DAC inside of the speaker. Then you have left and right in. If you were going to connect you'd need a phono preamp, but if you're going to connect a turntable or something like that. And then here's the key: sub out. So you have a subwoofer output, which is, I think, extremely important. There's also a trigger out. Again, I'm not sure what you would need that for. If you're doing some external amplifier with some in-wall subwoofer or something crazy. But generally speaking, you're not going to need that. And then again, you have the service port. We have our power connection and our on-off switch. And then we have our pairing modes for pairing the speaker, pairing via Bluetooth, which I would suggest you not mess with, and pairing via or connecting to your Wi-Fi network. So pretty simple setup. I'm running this. I'm not going to use any of that. So I'm not going to use any of these connections. The only thing that I would want to see, it would be an HDMI ARC or eARC connection on the back of this. But most, what I would suggest you're going to do, if you can swing $5,500 for a pair of bookshelves, or 10 grand for a pair of floor standers in the Focus 50s, I think you could swing getting a WISA enabled or WISA enabled TV, where you could connect 24-bit 96 kilohertz wirelessly to these, so you could eliminate all the wires altogether. So let me plug this back in. Let's talk about the speaker a little bit. as you can tell, I've been thinking about these for a while. So typical, this one actually, this is the demo from Dynaudio here from Travis in Florida, from my local rep. So he, had a little bit of a divot on here. So probably my tweeter's not performing up to full spec. But the very similar, not exact, but different, it's pulling from the typical Dynaudio architecture, which comes from the confidence line down. And so their, proprietary tech on how they make the poly cones, how they build the spider, how they, what size magnet to do, the crossover internally, of course, the Class D amplification. But the thing I love about Dynaudio, and my love affair with these speakers, is this guy, Silk Dome Tweeter. And so it doesn't pull, so these are bespoke drivers. I actually talked to Mike, who's the US representative. These don't match up specifically with like an Evoke or a Contour or they're not pulling these drivers directly. So they made these drivers specifically for the Focus 10. And then of course the Focus 30 and Focus 50, the floor standers, would use the same tweeter, and then some version of the woofers. The lower frequency drivers are a little different than this woofer, I believe. Or actually, I think it's the mid bass. I think that the lower frequency driver is the same, but the mid basses are a little bit different on the bigger box, the bigger floor standers. But you have they come in these. This is the blonde wood finish. They come in gloss black, gloss white, and walnut, like most of the same colors as the Evoke line, and most of the Dynaudio line. But these come with a grill. The grill's a little bit different on the Focus. I don't know why, but maybe just because it's their newest design. But the grill has this little aluminum plate on top, which is kind of nice. The other speakers don't have that. They're just black all around. And they do not have any kind of holes for, you would probably buy stand 20s for these. So if you're going to do the Dynaudio stands, which is what I suggest, you do the Dynaudio stands, you will, just like the Evokes, you will drill the Focus, or the Heritage line, the Contour line, and the Special 40s all had a threaded post, which I preferred. So you're going to take your $5,500 speakers and you're going to drill a hole in it if you're going to put it on a speaker stand. But I think most people with these, especially if you're going to do these in your garage, you're going to set it up on something like this. This is a Isoacoustics Aperta. This is the standard size. It gets a little narrow toward the back, so I don't love how this looks, but it certainly fits really well. And then these Aperta stands give you up to 4 degrees, positive and negative. These are about $150. I actually have them in the store if you're interested in them. They can really improve the sound of any of your speakers, get the speaker pitched in the direction or angle that you want. I was listening to these on this taller stool, and so I have a 2-degree rake upward. If I was sitting on the down on the ground and I had the speakers up here, I may flip the stand around and have it it point 2 or 3 degrees downward. But these Aperta stands, I have them for subwoofers, I have them for everything. Go to the Obsessed Garage store. We'll link it in the description. It took me a while to convince these guys to let me sell them. I haven't really talked about them much. I need to start talking about them. But the Aperta stands will decouple the speaker from the surface. And in a garage, if you have like a stainless steel countertop, or you have generally not a fantastic listening environment, this is pretty similar to a garage, with the difference of we have carpeting in here. This is the garage is generally not the best listening environment, and that's where these, I think, shine. Dynaudio in general. Silk Dome Tweeter tends to be smoother, more subdued, less bright. And then the thing I like about these most, and this is where I think they start to justify the $5,500 expense, and I know some of you are swallowing that lump in your throat saying I'm on frickin' crack for saying that the little baby 5-inch driver speaker, little bookshelf, is worth that much money. They do have onboard Dirac, so we can do direct room calibration. I'm going to show you what I did for this room here in a minute. But I'm able to, in a garage, attenuate some of the annoying sounds you get in the garage by having a soft dome tweeter, a soft dome experience. combined with Dynaudio's sort of flat, smooth frequency response, and then I can tune some more out with Dirac, which is really, really cool. If you didn't want to do Dirac, these have the standard modes that all the core line and LED lines have, where you can go into the software on your app on your phone. Notice there were no switches or anything on the back like there is in the core line or LED line. You use the switches essentially via the app. So what you do when you get the speakers, it's not super quick to set up. It's not like Blue OS, and so it's not as good as that. But once you get it set up, I found it to be pretty good and pretty reliable. They do come with a remote control, which you're gonna freaking put in the drawer and you're probably never gonna touch again. But it comes with a, okay-ish, kind of plasticky. I think for $5,500, this should probably be something with, like anodized aluminum or something like that, but you're never going to freaking use that. Where you might use this is if you were doing the WISA connection for a TV, like an LG or Sony or something like that. But what you're going to do is you're going to download the Dynaudio app. Let me go back here. I've already set it up, but it'll tell you what to do. If you wanted to add a new speaker, let's see, add a speaker, it'll show up here like this. They unfortunately stopped making the musics, which I really, really liked. But there's really only 2 speakers now that would work in this or function in this app. So you would choose the Focus 10, and then you would go through this setup process. You're going to connect it to Wi-Fi. You could do this in Bluetooth mode by holding the Bluetooth button on the back, but essentially what you're going to do, you're going to come here, you're going to hit this, walk through the steps. It's going to ask you if the light's blinking. If it's not blinking, you're going to press the Wi-Fi button for a few seconds, 3 seconds on the back of the speaker. It's going to connect to via AirPlay, through or Wi-Fi to your Wi-Fi network, and you'll be all set up. And then you'll see this. You'll see your Focus 10. You can even choose the color. Like if you had a black pair, you can choose the color. If you had a gloss white pair, you could choose what it looks like there. Notice I have Dirac turned on, but if I go to the speaker here and I go to settings, this is where I can mess with things. And so if you don't want to do the whole Dirac thing, you can just turn Dirac off. I will tell you the lesson learned. I was trying to connect to the speaker, trying to connect to them on my Dirac software, and if you don't turn this Dirac button on, it won't show up. And so I was battling, trying to get, I'm like, how come I can't find Dirac for the speakers? There's also no mic output or input, I guess, on the speakers. On all the NAD stuff, I became so accustomed to having I plug the microphone into the back via the USB dongle into the back of, say, the C658 or my M17 or anything that has Dirac on the NAD stuff. I don't normally plug it in there, so I had to plug it into my computer. And of course, I've got a PC. We'll talk about this in a minute, but I've got a little Dell PC I bought just for doing Dirac stuff, and it wouldn't freaking recognize. It recognized the microphone, but it wouldn't work. It wouldn't recognize the sound coming out of the darn speaker. It would recognize my voice. I don't know why. I restarted, reset. Anyway, it wouldn't, freaking stupid PC wouldn't work. But I will tell you, when you're doing Dirac room calibration, you generally want to use a PC. What happens, I don't know why this is, I've talked to Dirac, they think I'm crazy. I've talked to NAD, I've talked to Dirac directly. When I tune or when I set the levels on a Mac, and then I run the calibration and I install the calibration, it attenuates the volume output pretty substantially. And so luckily these have a lot of headroom, but it took my volume, like normal listening volume would be at like 50%, and it takes normal listening volume up to like 85%. So I don't have a lot of headroom to turn the darn thing up if I want to when I'm running the Dirac software. But if you didn't want to do Dirac, you do have, this is where I was talking about, you can run the speaker neutral, you can run it corner, you can run it wall, so there's a little bit of DSP adjustment, same thing as all the Pro line of speakers, and you could do it for each speaker, like if one was in a corner, you could choose that. The other thing you can do is you can choose the frequency balance. I always like to run all of the Dynaudio speakers in dark mode, and I'm pretty sure that if I go back to set up my room optimization, so you have the choice of either doing this, where you can set where the speaker is in the room, or DIRAC. So if I turn DIRAC on, it grays out the ability to put it, corner, because DIRAC will do all your room compensation. But I can still choose, and you want to keep this in mind when you're tuning with DIRAC, I can still choose neutral or bright, so I can choose what it does is if you're running it in dark, I think it takes and pulls a dB.5 off the high frequencies and adds a dB.5 to the low frequencies. So it kind of shifts the frequency response a tiny bit. But I like to run it dark, especially in a garage where it's tended to be a brighter environment with brighter things like glass and concrete and drywall and things like that. So what I'm doing with DIRAC, let me just show you how this works. So I took here's the DIRAC software. I paid the money because I have so many darn things that use DIRAC, but I think, what is it, a couple $100, I think, and you have the license and you can run as many speakers as you want. And so what I had to do, I got a little Apple dongle, right, because I don't have a regular USB connection. This is my microphone from the NAD equipment, so it doesn't come with a microphone. So you're either going to need to buy one. I wouldn't advise this. You could use the onboard microphone for your laptop. I think you're going to get some pretty crappy recording that way. And so then what I did is, so if we go back to start here, so first thing you do when you set up DIRAC is that you calibrate the volume, and this is where I was having a problem. So I couldn't get the PC to recognize. I don't know if it's going to want to go back there. Let me start fresh for you so I can show you how this works. So you would download the DIRAC software, you'd pay the license fee, and then you'd be able to run room calibration. It's actually pretty simple. I'll show you a couple of tips. I'm not an expert in it, but I know enough to be dangerous, and I know how to make the speaker sound good. So here's my Dynaudio Focus popped up. So remember, in the app, this is something that doesn't tell you in the instructions. It tells you to go to DIRAC in the Dynaudio instructions. So I'm the instruction manual for you for this. And I don't think a lot of the Dynaudio guys have done a lot of DIRAC stuff. So I have, because of all my NAD equipment. And so you need to go into the app, turn the DIRAC on the room optimization thing, turn it on, and then it'll pop up on your device, especially once your speakers are on the wireless network. If you don't turn that little tab on, it won't show up. And so you could use your MacBook Pro microphone. I could use my iPhone microphone. Actually, your iPhone microphone would probably be better than the MacBook Pro microphone. And then this is the C658 that's on the network that's over there. Obviously, don't want that. And so I'm going to choose my NAD microphone. And so it has this little USB connectivity thing here. So then you go to volume calibration. This is where I was having problems. See it recognizing my voice. It wasn't recognizing this on the PC for some unknown reason. But here's what happens. This is my little tip to you. On a Mac, when you start running the test tone, so let's say I start running the test tone, you'll hear it here in a second. So I'm running the test tone, it's recognizing the volume output, that's picking up my voice there. And one little tip is the higher you run the master output when you're running your level adjustment, the more attenuation it's going to give you on your calibration. Meaning that let's say I just listen to the speakers straight up without the DIRAC calibration, I'm listening at 50% volume. If I run my calibration where they say you should run it with your speaker somewhere around 17 to 20 decibels is where I should be running my signal, my output. If you do that, and I run it this high on a Mac, it's going to take the whole volume curve and move it way up, and you can't adjust upward. So what'll happen is you'll reach peak volume before you actually reach peak volume of what the amplifier is capable of. So that's why I find doing it on a PC tends to work much better, but again, like I said, I couldn't get the microphone to recognize probably something junk with the stupid Windows. But normally Normally I don't plug this into my computer directly. I normally plug this into my NAD device. So just keep that in mind. So you run your levels. These were right next to each other. The amplifiers are basically identical. I found that the wireless signal connecting them didn't cause an attenuation. So when I set my amplifier, or I set my listening position here, I took my microphone, I put it on top of there. I didn't need to really do any volume adjustment anyway, or adjustment left and right. But let's say your right speaker was over here and your left speaker, if your right speaker was here and your left speaker was like way over there, you would have some volume adjustment, because when you're doing your testing, you want to bring your levels, you want your speakers to be the same volume at your listening position here if you can help it. Since I have this set up pretty well in this proper position, I didn't need to do any adjustment there. You don't want to add any mic gain if you can help it as well. You just want to run it at 100%. And so then I come over here. I chose to do a tightly focused image. In a garage, my suggestion, especially if you're running around, I would run the calibration at wide imaging. So wide imaging means you have a much bigger area and a much bigger sound stage. A tightly focused image, if you're going to be sitting in front of a pair of speakers and listening to them. And so for this room, I ran a tightly focused image, is how I ran my calibration. Then you proceed to measure, and so you move the thing around. So the best thing to do is put this on a tripod. So you're going to take your normal listening position, and then you're going to take a forward position, and you're going to take a rearward low position and a rearward high position. If you were to do a wide image, you can run, I'll show you this here. If you do a wide image test, notice it's going to have a bunch of different points. The more points you run, the better choice of selection that you're going to have more selection. So let me go back to, now once you do the calibration, it'll send it over to your phone. And so I did 2 different calibrations. I did OG Studio and OG Studio 2. I've been running on Studio 2. And so you can run, I think you can store up to 6 different versions. So let me see if I can load, resume previous session. Let's see. There we go. Okay. So here's what your output is after you spend 20 minutes or so running the test tones. Here's your outputs. If I go and group my left and right speaker, notice there's a pretty nasty dip here in the, what is that, like 150 hertz range, in the lower mid range. And so this is the curve, this is the curve that we, this here, the squiggly lines are the curve, the measured curve, right? And so you have your left speaker and your right speaker, so you can look at each individually if you want to. But what you're going to do with Dirac is you're going to group your left and right speaker, and we're going to create our own curve. And so it set my fence here, it set it at 20 hertz or 18 hertz, because the speaker is actually producing a decent amount of output, although it rolls off pretty substantially at around 18 hertz. So the speaker's playing way down there, but I don't think we're really getting much amplitude out at that frequency. So I brought and set my rail up here, my fence up at around 30 hertz. Because then what I could do is I could bring my frequency response curve up here. One little tip, this is where you can get kind of dicey. You don't want your corrected curve to be more than 10 decibels. That's a good rule of thumb. More than 10 decibels than your actual measured curve, right? So this is my corrected curve. This is what I'm going to listen to. And so because I am pretty sensitive to high frequencies, notice I brought my curve down, and so you can grab these and you can kind of pull it. I don't like flat frequency response speakers. I like some character, and so sometimes some of these dips and some of these peaks and troughs create some character in a speaker and gives it a sound signature. And so I don't like to be too flat. But I brought and bumped up my frequency response here at 34 hertz, about 6 decibels, and then I kind of rode the curve downward. And then here, you can see I'm taking about 5.5 dB off off of the frequency response here in the low registers. And I kind of played with this, and I ran this about, so when I'm done with this, I just export this filter, and that's where I export it to one of these spots. And so Studio 1 version was, didn't quite pull the high frequencies down as much as I would like, but Studio 2 is the one that I ran, and that's the one that I ended up with. That's right, I didn't save the project because these aren't my speakers, so I'm going to give these back to Travis. And so I actually took this, it had set a fence right around here at around 15,000 hertz. I bumped it to 20K, and so I'm getting a full frequency range here. It's just really rolling off here as you approach 20,000 hertz. So that's kind of weird. Most of the speakers, so I have the fence set at 22,900 hertz. I probably should bring that over a bit. I mean, really, we can only hear it at 20,000, so let's bring our fence to 20,000 is what I would do. Boom. Music is not going to produce anything that high frequency anyway. So then, we go to listen to the speakers. Now I'm kind of limited on what I can listen to because of copyright. So I'm going to sit here, I'm going to run Dirac Live, so it's graying out, so my room optimization is set up for OG Studio 2. I did run it where I ran the volume a little bit lower than I would like for my calibration, and I end up with a pretty decent amount of amplitude. What I would really ultimately, if I was going to keep these speakers, what I'd really want to do, I'd want to figure out what's going on with my microphone, and I'd want to do my room calibration on a PC, because I find that doesn't jack up or attenuate my signal. And so now these speakers, the magic of them is that they have tons and tons of amplification. They're kind of small, the 5-inch driver, 5.25-inch driver. But even without a subwoofer, they're playing down to 30-something hertz pretty reliably. So imagine if I added a subwoofer to this, it'd be really quite incredible. So for me, in a garage, in a living room, anywhere, these speakers could be done anywhere. I would suggest you do walnut or blonde wood if you're going to do it in the garage. If you do the gloss colors, the gloss are going to kind of get scratched up because you're going to be dusting them off all the time. And so now, if I'm going to go Tidal, and I'm going to listen to Seth Baker here, who's Bryce's buddy, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to then connect via AirPlay. Let's see if I can see the speakers here. I haven't listened to anything on there they are. Boom. So we're not high res. Seth is not putting high res in, and Spotify is not a high res platform. But I can control my volume right here, right from my phone. You can see the speakers blinking as I turn the volume up and down. But these are pretty darn magical, man. At first I wasn't interested in all, and Travis brought them to me anyway from Dynaudio. I'm like, ah. And they're sitting in the box, and they were sitting in my house, and I listened to them a little bit here and there. I've spent the last day and a half just kind of playing with them. Maybe not a full day and a half, but I spent some time playing with them, and I'm really starting to fall in love. So I'm at like 3/4 volume. If I was not in Dirac, it would be much lower. But these will play much, much louder than I can handle. So like I was saying earlier, Alpha IQs would be a competitor at $1,500. The old Zeos, I found that all those speakers, I reached maximum, and like I still made listening at medium volume. Sometimes, especially in the garage, you want to jam out. These have that ability to do that for sure. Add a subwoofer to it, it'll destroy the room. I don't care, 1,600 square foot garage over there, they'll totally fill it up. But these are for someone who has a set of, you know, MSS Plus or Listas or Lustos or something. You have a Ferrari and a 911, you know, like, these aren't for everybody. I get that. Super, super smooth, especially after I've done my little Dirac business to it. It's really good. Easily run without a sub, for sure. Sub will make it better, but I can't imagine what the 50s sound like. So I started questioning, I started thinking, well, if you were considering, so if I go back to OG and if I go Core 7, so the Core 7 speaker looks like this. Similar looking speaker. It's a ported speaker versus these are sealed. These have a, so what is the actual driver size here? It's a weird, not a weird for us, you know, what's the size? I think it's 14 centimeters. Crossover tweeter is a 28 millimeter. Yeah, 14 centimeters. So what is 14 centimeters? Like 5 and change. 14 divided by 2.54 is, yeah, it's a 5.5, a little over 5.5 inch woofer, right? And the Core, so the Core speaker, which would be similar in the Pro audio range. Now, not pretty, right? Pretty, not so pretty. It's a black box. Basically, think of it, it's kind of like, it's almost like a Rhino line looking finish. But the Core 7 is, so if we look at the spec of that, the Core 7s have more power, right? So the amplifier power for the woofer is 500 watts, the tweeter's 150. So Core has considerably more power, same amplifier, same architecture, but a whole lot more power. So it actually has quite a bit more output capability. And that one is a slightly different tweeter, so slightly better tweeter in the Core. And then it has a 7-inch woofer. So Core 7, 7-inch woofer versus 5.5. And the Core 7s are, yeah, singles $2,100. So you're $4,200 for a pair of Core 7s, and then you add a Blue Sound node for $550. So you're at what, $4,700 for a much, much more stout speaker. Slightly better tweeter, slightly better woofer, slightly bigger woofer, slightly bigger or significantly bigger amplifier. Not as pretty of a box. So in a garage, I mean, I love these, but I think I would probably, unless I needed the wireless capability of this, and if I had like the setup for this, again, the nice thing about this is no extra box, no extra device. Disadvantage is this is not going to be on my Blue OS network if I have a bunch of NAD stuff or Blue OS stuff throughout my house. So I still think for my money, shoot, you could go up to Core 47, which is a 3-way speaker. Core 47s are $2,650, so you're $5,200, and if, you know, so you're $5,700, $5,750. $5,800. So for $300 more, I could do a Core 47 pair and a Blue Sound node, and like destroy the room, you know. So I would probably actually, if you go back to Core 7, do a sub 18S, Dynaudio sub 18S, and you're going to be, you know, around the same money as this, or maybe an SVS sub or something like that. So if I were advising someone, you can always reach out to me, matt@obsessedgarage.com. I love talking audio stuff. But if I were advising you on a setup, whether it's your office or your garage office, or your home theater, or your setup, I mean, these are a very unique use case, but they are very, very nice. Much, much nicer than I thought. For the price. I see why they cost so much. The amplifier is very sophisticated. The software is very sophisticated. I mean, it's basically an Evoke speaker. I just wish that, I almost wish that they would have made the Focus 10 a Focus 20 at this price point. A Focus 20 price point with a bigger woofer would have made a little bit more sense to me, but I think I'm probably going to carry these. Maybe we'll carry them as a special order for certain garage designs and things. I like them a lot more than I thought. I wasn't interested, and I probably wouldn't have even have demoed them had Travis not brought them to me. But I'm pleasantly surprised with the speaker. I don't know what to say about the price. I mean, it's a lot of money for this when I could do, the core stuff. But the core has wires, the core has XLR, the core, needs a separate processor in order to do your streaming. There's some pros and cons to that. So I think you'd have to share with me your use case, or just think about the case that you're going to be using the speakers and where it's going to be set up and what it's going to look like. If you need something to look really attractive, you don't want a bunch of wires, you don't want a bunch of stuff going on, do a pair of these and then add a subwoofer later, and you've got yourself a freaking killer system. It's just that you're going to be, $7,500 to set it up that way, $8,000 to have a bookshelf pair of speakers with a subwoofer. So anyway, thanks for watching. Go to obsessedgarage.com, and I have all these audio solutions available. If you need some help, I can help you design your home theater. I spent half my life doing that. I'm a Dynaudio junkie. These, I think, have their place in a niche setting, but I think that in general, in the garage, I don't think you can do much better. I love this. I love Dynaudio in the garage. Shoot, I have Dynaudio in the home theater, and all over the freaking place. In my office, I have 2 sets in my office. I've got my computer desk set up. So if you need help with any of that stuff, give me a shout. Love to help you out. So thanks for watching. That's my little diatribe on Dirac, Focus 10s, and some isoacoustic stands. I've been chasing this stuff pretty much all of my adult life, so I wouldn't call myself the world's foremost expert, but I do know quite a bit about this stuff, quite a bit about it on my, with my biases and my choices in mind. I am excited. I'm going to CEDIA for the first time ever, so I'm going to the CEDIA show next month. I'm excited to go there just to geek out on some speaker stuff, but yeah, thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next video. See you soon.